I should have gotten off that train. The doors were open. The platform was right there. Every muscle in my body was screaming at me to just move, to run, to do anything except stay in that seat. But I just couldn't, because there was a man standing on that platform, staff uniform, staring directly at me through the window, and his mouth was moving, counting down. 5, 4, 3. I was too terrified to move. The doors closed and the train lurched forward. And when I looked back, it was too late. The platform was gone. Just darkness. And somehow I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. I work late shifts at a tech company. Most nights, I catch the last metro home around 11:30. The last Tuesday, everything went wrong. A system crashed. By the time we fixed it, I looked up at the clock and it was already 12:46 a.m. I grabbed my bag and ran. I got to the platform just in time to see the last train pulling away. The red taillights disappearing into the tunnel. Gone. My phone was dead. I'd forgotten to charge it yet again. No way to call a cab, no way to call anyone. I stood there staring at the empty tracks, weighing my options. The station would reopen at 5, which is just 4 hours, and so I could possibly just sleep on a bench, I thought. The lights were buzzing. The entire station was deserted. No staff, no cleaners, no one. So I just sat down and closed my eyes. And that's when I heard footsteps. An old man in a metro uniform came walking slowly down the platform, checking the benches with a flashlight. When he reached me, he stopped. He looked at his watch, then looked at me. He told me the last train was gone. I said I knew. I'd just wait till morning. He stared at me for a long moment, then he said something strange. He said there was one more train, a staff train, that came at 1:47 a.m. to take the night shift workers back to the depot. He said I could take it if I wanted. I told him that I wasn't sure that I would be allowed, and I probably wasn't. But he told me that I was allowed when he said it was. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. But sitting alone in that empty station for 4 more hours felt worse. I told him okay, and then thanked him. He told me to wait right there. Don't wander, and when I hear the train coming, I should just get on. And then he said something specific. Make sure to stay behind the yellow line. The staff seats are beyond it. The train won't move unless passengers are in the right section. Then he turned and walked into the darkness. His footsteps echoed and faded away. I checked the time on the platform clock. 1:16 a.m. 30 minutes more. The station was so quiet, I could hear the hum of the ventilation system. Then slowly, the lights started flickering. Just a little at first, then longer gaps. The hum of the vents got quieter, like the whole station was powering down. At 1:43 a.m., I heard it. A deep rumble from inside the tunnel. I stood up and walked to the edge of the platform. The sound was getting louder, but it wasn't coming from the usual direction. It was coming from the depot side, the opposite direction of what I expected. Then I saw the light. Not bright white like a normal metro. This was dim, flickering, old yellow incandescent bulbs. The train came crawling out of the tunnel. Slow. Probably too slow. It pulled up and stopped. The doors hissed open. Inside, the carriage was completely empty. I stood there, staring into the train. The lights were flickering. Long shadows stretched across the seats. No driver visible in the cabin. No announcements. No sounds except the low mechanical hum. I should have walked away, but I was exhausted. And some part of my brain said, "It's just a train, get on." So I stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped. Not air conditioned cold, but cold, cold, like a freezer. I looked down and saw it immediately. A thick yellow line painted across the floor, cutting the carriage in half. The watchman's words echoed in my head. Stay behind the line. I sat down in the back section, well behind the yellow line. The carriage smelled like rust and something else. Something stale. Something rotting, or maybe even dead. The doors closed. The train lurched forward and started moving. We were going backwards, back into the tunnel that the train had come from. I stood up and looked out of the window. The platform was sliding away, but we weren't heading towards what I thought would be the next station. We were going deeper into the depot tunnel. My chest tightened. I walked towards the driver's cabin. The door was open a crack, so I pushed it wider. Empty. No one inside. The controls weren't moving, just a dark windshield showing tunnel walls sliding past. I backed out into the carriage, still alone. Just me and the flickering lights and that yellow line on the floor. The clock on the wall said 1:54 a.m. We'd been moving for 7 minutes. We should have reached the station by now. But there was only tunnel, and the lights were dying, one by one. And then suddenly, the train started slowing down. Very peacefully, it came to a stop. The doors opened. Outside was a platform, but it didn't feel like a real station. The walls were bare concrete. No signs, no maps, no ads, just a single flickering overhead light. And standing directly across from my window was a man in a staff uniform. He was staring at me, not moving, not blinking, just staring. And his mouth was moving. He was counting. 5, 4, 3. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get off, to run, but I couldn't move because I knew, somehow I knew, that if I stepped onto that platform, something worse would have happened. 2, 1. Doors started to close, but just before they shut, I saw him step forward, right onto the train. The man was inside the carriage now, at the far end, standing perfectly still in the flickering darkness, in the front section beyond the yellow line. Then he started walking towards me, slow, deliberate, his eyes locked on mine. I backed up, 1 step, 2 steps, my back hit the rear wall of the carriage, nowhere left to go. But he kept walking, getting closer, crossing the yellow line, coming into my section. Panic took over. I lunged forward, trying to get past him, trying to get to the doors. My foot crossed the yellow line. And the moment that happened, the train let out a deafening screech. The emergency brakes had slammed. I was thrown forward, my head smashing onto the metal pole by the door. And then everything went black. I woke up on a bench, the same bench I'd been sitting on earlier. Bright sunlight was streaming through the station skylight. Commuters were walking past. The morning trains were already running. Everything was normal. I touched my forehead. There was a cut. Bright blood, a swelling lump. I stood up, dizzy, and walked to the station office. I asked about the staff train, the train that runs at 1:47 a.m. They looked at me like I was insane. No such train exists. The station locks after the last metro. No one gets in or out. I described the old watchman. They said no one matching that description worked there. So I went home. I tried convincing myself that I had just fallen asleep, hit my head on the bench, and dreamed everything. But 4 days later, something came in the mail. A plain envelope. No return address, just my name and address written in perfect handwriting. Inside was a single photograph. It was me on that train, taken from the far end of the carriage. I was across the yellow line, and below the photo, printed on official metro letterhead, was a single sentence. Fine for unauthorized seating has been paid in full. I never took the metro again.